The auction hall was enormous, a shining dome of glass and metal, floating above a bustling spaceport. Aliens of every shape and size filled the hall, their eyes wide with excitement. Some had 4 arms, some had glowing skin, and others had long tails that twitched with anticipation. They spoke in strange voices, each accent different, but all shared the same goal: to own something rare, something unique, something exotic. On the raised platform at the center of the hall, a small human stood alone. His hair was brown and messy, his eyes calm but alert. He wore a simple tunic and boots, far less fancy than the alien creatures around him. Some of the nobles laughed softly at him. "A human? How quaint," said one with green, scaled skin. "They are fragile, barely intelligent. A childlike pet, nothing more." The human didn't respond. He simply looked around, observing everything with quiet curiosity. He noticed the intricate patterns on the aliens' clothing, the small robotic helpers scuttling along the floor, and the soft hum of energy shields protecting the audience. Unlike the aliens, he didn't feel the need to boast or shout. He knew that sometimes, watching and understanding is more powerful than showing off. The auctioneer, a tall being with 6 eyes and shimmering blue feathers, raised its arms. "Next," it called. The crowd quieted instantly. A rare human male. Approximately 20 cycles old. Calm, healthy, and untrained. "Who bids?" The nobles looked at each other, whispering. Some thought this would be a joke, a distraction from the more valuable exotic beast. One particularly wealthy noble, a tall figure with golden skin and 2 long horns curling over his shoulders, raised a claw. "I bid 50,000 credits, he said, his voice echoing across the hall. The crowd murmured in surprise. 50,000 was a respectable sum for an ordinary alien creature, let alone a human. Another noble, smaller but with glowing purple eyes, smirked. "I can offer 70,000, she said. The crowd gasped. Humans were rare in this sector, but no one expected such high bids. Still, the golden-skinned noble's smile didn't fade. 100,000 credits, he countered, raising the tension in the room. The human stood quietly, watching the flashing numbers and listening to the chatter around him. He didn't understand all of the currency or customs, but he understood one thing. These beings underestimated him. They thought he was weak. They thought he could be bought and sold like a toy. He didn't panic. Instead, he felt a strange calm, like the calm before a storm. Finally, the auctioneer banged its gavel, a loud metallic sound that echoed through the hall. "Sold," it cried. To the noble with the golden skin and long horns. A cheer erupted from the human's new owner, and the small entourage of aliens around him began to lead him toward a transport ship waiting outside. The human stepped forward, his posture straight, his mind quiet but alert. He was leaving behind everything familiar, but he was not afraid. Fear would not help him here. Curiosity, observation, and patience would. The journey to the noble's estate was long. The ship glided silently through space, past fields of stars and distant planets. The human looked out of the window, fascinated by the swirl of colors and shapes he had never seen before. Around him, alien servants prepared his quarters. They were polite but distant, unsure how to treat this small human who had been bought like an object. When he arrived, the estate was enormous, more beautiful than any palace he had seen in his home world. Towering spires reached into the sky, glowing gardens stretched for miles, and strange creatures roamed the courtyards. The human was shown to his room, a large chamber with soft flooring and enough space to move freely. At first he was left alone. The servants expected him to be scared or to cry, but he did neither. Instead, he explored the room carefully, touching the smooth walls, studying the strange devices, and noticing small details that no one else seemed to care about. He was learning quickly, observing patterns, habits, and weaknesses. That evening, the noble who had purchased him visited. He was tall and imposing, his golden skin gleaming under the estate's lights. He looked down at the human and smiled. "You will be my pet," he said simply. "You will do as I command." The human looked up, meeting the noble's eyes calmly. He didn't nod or show fear. He only smiled faintly, almost imperceptibly. "I will try to understand," he said softly. The noble raised an eyebrow, confused by the response. Pets did not speak like this. Pets did not think like this. And that was the first sign that this human was unlike anything the alien nobles had ever seen. They thought they had purchased a fragile, obedient creature. They did not know that humans had a power that no money could buy, the power to form bonds, to adapt, and to influence everything around them. The human lay down that night, staring at the glowing ceiling, and for the first time, he allowed himself a small, quiet thought. this was only the beginning. The next morning the human woke early. Sunlight, or what passed for sunlight in the alien estate, shimmered through the tall windows, casting colorful patterns across the floor. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the estate's systems and the occasional call of distant alien creatures. He stepped out cautiously, curious about everything he saw. The halls were wide and polished, stretching further than he could see. Strange paintings and holograms decorated the walls, showing beings from worlds he had never visited. Every corner held movement, robotic servants gliding silently, alien animals pacing their enclosures, and the faint whisper of energy flowing through the estate. At first the alien servants avoided him. They were polite but distant, unsure how to treat the human who had been bought as a pet. They expected fear, confusion, maybe even tears, but he showed none. He only observed, listened, and moved calmly through the halls. Their caution intrigued him. Humans had a strange habit of learning quickly, and he was already noticing patterns in their behavior. The first creature he encountered was a small, multi-legged alien pet with bright blue fur and glowing eyes. It hissed softly, baring sharp teeth, but didn't attack. The human knelt slowly, keeping his hands open and still. He spoke in a low, gentle voice, though he doubted the creature understood him. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said simply. The alien pet tilted its head, staring at him. There was a pause, long enough that the human felt it in his chest. Then slowly the creature inched closer, sniffing his hand. When it finally nudged against him, he smiled. That small connection, fragile as it was, felt like a victory. Over the next few hours he moved through the estate, meeting more pets, small creatures, and even the robotic assistants. With each interaction he showed patience, kindness, and curiosity. And with each the bonds grew. Animals that were shy or aggressive became more relaxed around him. Machines that were cold and mechanical seemed to respond more quickly to his commands. Even the alien servants began to notice his presence, their fear replaced by quiet respect. By the second day something remarkable was happening. The human wasn't just surviving, he was changing the estate itself. Alien pets that had refused to eat were now gathering near him. Robotic systems started anticipating his needs before he even requested them. And the noble staff who had doubted him began to speak of him in hushed tones. "He has a way, something we do not understand," one whispered. The human didn't think about power or control. He only thought about understanding. He had always noticed patterns, always seen the connections between people, animals, and the world around him. On his home planet, he had bonded with animals, plants, and even the devices his family used. Here that instinct was stronger. Everything in the estate, he realized, could be a part of his pack. That evening, the noble who had bought him returned. His golden skin gleamed under the bright lights, and his long horns caught the reflections of the glowing halls. He looked at the human carefully. "I see you have met the pets," he said, trying to sound commanding, but there was a hint of surprise in his tone. "And they seem calm around you." The human nodded. "They are not afraid," he said softly. "They just need to understand who you are." The noble frowned. "And what am I to you?" The human looked at him steadily. "You are part of the pack," he said simply. "But only if you earn it." The noble blinked, caught off guard. Pets did not speak this way. Pets did not think this way. And yet, he could not deny the truth of it. The creatures and machines in the estate had changed. The human had touched them, and they responded in ways that no alien power or technology could force. Over the next days, the human continued to explore the estate. He learned which pets were shy, which robots were stubborn, and which servants were kind or cruel. And every time he formed a bond. He never forced it. He never demanded it. He simply gave trust and attention, and the loyalty came naturally in return. It became clear that the human was not just a pet. He was a connector, a force that could unite every living and mechanical being in the estate. Where the alien saw a fragile, weak creature, the human saw potential, relationships, and strength in cooperation. By the end of the week, the estate felt different. Pets no longer hid or hissed. Machines operated more smoothly than ever. Even the noble's staff moved with a subtle ease, as if guided by an invisible hand. And the noble himself, watching from his private balcony, could not help but feel something unfamiliar: admiration. The human, sitting quietly in the garden surrounded by alien pets and humming machines, smiled to himself. He understood the truth that the aliens had not yet realized: humans were not weak. Humans were born to bond, to lead, and to turn the smallest spark into something far greater than themselves. And in this alien estate, far from his home, he was just beginning to show it. Days passed, and the human's presence in the estate began to ripple through everything. At first, It was small changes that the alien nobles barely noticed. A pet that had refused food now ate eagerly. A robotic assistant that always lagged in response now moved faster, its movements smooth and precise. Even the estate's plants seemed to grow a little taller, their leaves reaching toward the human as he walked by. The human did not try to control anything. He only observed, spoke softly, and touched gently. He would stroke the fur of the alien pets, whisper calming words to the nervous servants, or press a finger to a small machine to test its reactions. And each time something shifted. The creatures and devices responded to him in ways that no one had expected. The alien nobles still thought of him as a pet, though their amusement was slowly turning to confusion. "He is strange," one noble said quietly to another during a dinner in the Grand Hall. "Our pets and our machines should obey commands. Yet, everything seems to obey him without being told." Another noble, a smaller figure with smooth silver skin, shook her head. "Perhaps humans are different than we thought. I still do not understand how he does it. He is fragile, yet he carries a power I have never seen." Meanwhile, the human continued to bond with everything around him. He noticed the shyest pets hiding in corners, and with a quiet touch, he drew them out. He found malfunctioning robots and, without any complex tools, fixed them simply by understanding their patterns and anticipating their needs. The servants began to watch him closely, whispering to one another, amazed by how easily he could influence creatures, machines, and even the estate itself. One afternoon, the human found himself in the grand hall where the alien nobles often gathered. A group of pets was nervous, twitching and hissing at the nobles. Most of the nobles ignored the animals, seeing them as minor nuisances. But the human knelt in the center of the hall, his eyes soft and calm. He spoke slowly, words almost like a song. The pets stopped moving, their tense bodies relaxing. The glowing-eyed creatures circled around him, brushing against his legs. Even the robotic assistants moved closer, their sensors following him with smooth precision. The nobles stared in astonishment. This small human, who they had purchased as a toy, had created harmony where there was chaos. It was not just the creatures or machines that were affected. The servants began to work more efficiently, their fear replaced by quiet trust. They listened to his suggestions, copying the gentle way he approached problems. Some even started to smile more, their moods lifted by the calm presence of the human. The noble who owned him, the tall figure with golden skin, watched from the balcony. His curiosity grew, mixed with unease. "He is not just a pet," he admitted to himself. "He is something else entirely." The human did not seek power or praise. He only wanted to understand, to connect, and to help. But the effects of his presence were undeniable. The estate ran smoother, the creatures were happier, and even the nobles began to notice a change in the energy of their home. Late one night, the human wandered through the gardens. The glowing plants seemed to lean toward him, and the pets followed silently. He paused at the fountain in the center, watching the water ripple. He realized something important. Humans had a gift. They could form bonds that crossed species, technology, and culture. They could bring life and loyalty where none existed before. He thought about the nobles who had bought him, expecting a weak, obedient creature. They did not yet understand that humans were not meant to be owned. Humans were meant to lead, to connect, and to inspire loyalty through care and understanding. The next morning, the estate faced a small crisis. One of the robotic caretakers malfunctioned, threatening to spill a precious collection of alien artifacts. The servants panicked, unsure how to stop it. The noble owner shouted commands, but nothing worked. The human stepped forward calmly. He studied the robot for a moment, then reached out. With a few precise movements and gentle words, the robot stopped its dangerous actions. The artifacts were safe, and the nobles stared in disbelief. "He did that," one of the smaller nobles whispered. "With nothing but himself." The human smiled faintly, not proud, only calm. He understood that his strength was not in size or weaponry but in connection. Everything in the estate could be a part of the same team, the same pack, if treated with patience and care. By the end of the week, the nobles could no longer deny it. Their pet was changing their home. Pets, robots, and servants were working together in a way that no command, machine, or money could achieve. The human had created harmony where there was none, influence where no power existed. And the human knew this was only the beginning. His bonds were spreading slowly and quietly, preparing the estate, and its alien rulers, for challenges they could never have imagined. The estate was quiet at first light, but an uneasy feeling hung in the air. The alien pets were restless, twitching and sniffing at the doors, while some of the servants whispered nervously to each other. The human noticed immediately. His sharp eyes scanned the gardens, the halls, and the balconies. Something was coming, something big, something dangerous. It was not long before the warning arrived. A monstrous predator, far larger than any creature in the estate, had breached the outer gates. Its glowing eyes pierced the darkness, and its claws scraped against the reinforced walls. The alarm systems blared, red lights flashing across the halls. The nobles, shocked by the audacity of the intruder, gathered in the main hall, shouting orders to the servants and guards. "Seal the gates," one noble bellowed. "Protect the artifacts. Protect yourselves." The humans' pets scattered in panic, robotic assistants moved erratically, and the servants froze, unsure how to respond. The alien nobles barked commands, but the predator ignored the barriers, breaking through one section of the wall with frightening strength. It moved with precision and intelligence, targeting the valuables and creatures inside the estate. The human did not panic. He stepped into the center of the hall, his eyes calm, scanning everything and everyone around him. He realized immediately that the nobles' orders alone would not stop the predator. Strength, speed, and technology were not enough. What was needed was coordination, a pack working together, united. He began with the pets. Using gentle gestures and soft words, he calmed them. The small creatures that had once hidden now gathered around him, following his lead. Their instincts tuned to his calm presence, ready to act without fear. Then he turned to the robotic assistants, speaking in a low, precise tone. He instructed them to create barriers, redirect energy flows, and guide the creatures to safety. The robots, designed only to obey commands, responded instinctively to the humans' clarity and patience. Even the servants, who had been terrified, began to move under his direction. He gave simple instructions, pointing, guiding, and encouraging. Slowly, the chaos transformed into organized action. Pets, robots, and humans acted as one, protecting the estate and each other. The predator lunged through a broken wall, claws flashing. The alien nobles tried to intervene with weapons and energy shields, but the human had already anticipated this. He moved quickly, positioning the pets and robots to block and distract. One small blue-furred pet darted at the predator's leg, biting and yanking. A robotic assistant created a force barrier to redirect the creature's momentum. Another pet circled from behind, drawing its attention. The nobles watched in disbelief as the human orchestrated the defense. The predator, though fierce and intelligent, struggled against the coordinated pack. Every movement the human made was amplified by the loyalty and trust of the creatures and machines around him. The predator could not break through the network of connections the human had quietly built. Finally, the predator roared in frustration and retreated, wounded and unable to breach the coordinated defenses. The estate was safe. Pets returned to their usual behaviors, robots resumed their regular tasks, and the servants exhaled, relief flooding their faces. Even the nobles were silent, shocked by what they had just witnessed. The human stood in the hall, calm and unshaken. His clothes were slightly torn, his hair messy, but his eyes were bright and steady. He looked at the nobles, and in his gaze was a quiet truth. Humans were not just fragile creatures to be bought or controlled. They had instincts, intelligence, and the ability to bond with every being, creating strength where there was none. The golden-skinned noble who had purchased him stepped forward, his expression a mix of awe and shame. I did not expect this," he admitted, his voice low. "I thought you were a pet. I thought you were weak. But today, you have shown us something incredible." The human smiled faintly, not proud, only calm. "I did not fight alone," he said. "Everyone here helped. They listened. They trusted. That is how we protected the estate." The nobles were silent, realizing the truth in his words. Strength was not just in weapons or numbers. Strength could come from loyalty, trust, and bonds that cross species and machines. The human had created a pack, and together they had overcome a danger that no noble or army could have defeated alone. From that day forward, the human was no longer viewed as a simple pet. He had proven his value in ways that could not be ignored. The nobles began to observe him closely, learning from his patience, strategy, and the way he inspired trust. The pets and robots, too, seemed to recognize the shift, following his guidance without hesitation. And the human, standing quietly in the hall surrounded by the creatures and devices he had saved, understood something very important. Humans could change everything. With calm, patience, and connection, they could turn even fear and chaos into order and loyalty. The predator might have been the first real test, but the human knew it would not be the last. And he was ready. The morning after the predator had retreated, the estate felt different. The halls, once noisy with fear and confusion, were calm and orderly. The pets moved freely, the robots worked smoothly, and even the servants went about their tasks with quiet confidence. It was as if the humans' influence had settled over the entire estate, leaving harmony in its place. The nobles gathered in the main hall, still shaken from the events of the previous day. They whispered among themselves, their expressions a mixture of awe and confusion. The golden-skinned noble, who had bought the human, cleared his throat and spoke to the group. "This human," he said slowly, "is unlike anything we expected. He is not a pet. He is a leader, though not in the way we understand leadership. He does not command with fear or force. He commands through connection." The other nobles nodded, their eyes following the human as he moved quietly among the pets, gently patting their heads and speaking softly. Even the nobles could feel it, an invisible influence radiating from him, drawing trust and loyalty from every living and mechanical being in the estate. The human did not seek recognition. He continued his quiet routines, checking on the pets, speaking to the robots, and observing the servants. But his impact was undeniable. The estate ran better than ever. Every corner, every creature, every machine responded to him with efficiency and care. It was clear to the nobles that this human had a power they could not buy, build, or command. One of the smaller nobles, with silver skin that shimmered like starlight, stepped forward. "Tell us," she said, her voice cautious, "how did you do it? How did you control the pets, the robots, and even the humans around you?" The human looked at her calmly. "I do not control them," he said softly. "I listen. I understand. I care. When you treat others as part of a pack, they respond. Loyalty, trust, and respect cannot be bought. They are earned through patience and connection." The nobles exchanged glances, realizing that this simple truth was something they had never considered. Their wealth and power had bought many things, exotic pets, rare artifacts, even planets, but they had never learned how to create bonds like this. They had never understood the human ability to unite everything, living and mechanical, through empathy and patience. The golden-skinned noble stepped closer to the human, his long horns glinting in the sunlight. "You have saved this estate," he said quietly. "Not with weapons, not with machines, but with yourself. And in doing so, you have taught us something far more valuable than any treasure." The human nodded slightly. "I only did what humans do naturally. We bond. We form packs. We care for each other and for those around us. That is our strength. You can learn from it if you choose to." The nobles remained silent, thinking carefully about his words. Some felt pride, others shame, and all felt a sense of awe. They had bought a human as a pet, expecting obedience and weakness. Instead, they had received a teacher, a leader, and a reminder that strength could come from connection, not fear. From that day on, the human's role in the estate changed. He was no longer a pet to be watched or managed. He became an advisor, a mentor to the household, and a bridge between species. The pets and robots followed him eagerly, the servants respected his guidance, and the nobles began to observe and learn from his ways. Even the smallest acts carried meaning. When he cared for a sick pet, the nobles noticed how the creature's health improved faster than any medical device could achieve. When he repaired a broken robot, it operated more efficiently than before. When he encouraged the servants, they performed their duties with joy instead of obligation. Each act built respect, loyalty, and trust throughout the estate. At night, the human often stood on a balcony, looking out over the gardens and glowing lights of the estate. The pets played freely, the robots moved in perfect coordination, and the nobles' voices, once harsh and commanding, now spoke with a new humility. He understood that he had done more than save the estate from a predator. He had changed the hearts and minds of those who thought themselves superior, showing them the true power of humans. And in that quiet moment he realized something important. Humans were not meant to be slaves, toys, or pets. They were meant to connect, lead, and inspire. They could bring harmony where there was chaos, loyalty where there was doubt, and courage where there was fear. That was the gift that no alien, no machine, and no amount of wealth could ever replicate. The nobles, watching from the hall, could not deny it. Their human pet had earned their respect, their trust, and their admiration. He had changed the estate forever, not by force but by showing the power of being human. And so, the human stood in the center of the estate, calm, quiet, and confident. Around him, a pack of creatures, robots, and humans moved together, loyal and ready. And the aliens, once proud and dismissive, now understood something they had never known. Humans were not just survivors, they were leaders, connectors, and the heart of any pack. The estate had been saved. The predator was gone. And humanity, in its quiet, patient way, had triumphed.